James with NetNewsLedger. Joining us by phone is Minister of Health Patty Hajdu, the Member of Parliament for Thunder Bay Superior North. Minister, welcome back.
Thank you very much, James.
And we're both dry with the storm that happened just a few minutes ago.
Yes, well, I was on a call actually with the Special Advisory Committee, all the chief public health officers across the country, and my call dropped twice, so I had to apologize and remind them that I was calling from Thunder Bay.
Well, we
lived up to our name.
We certainly did.
We did.
Moving forward right now, the economy is starting to open up. Ontario's moving to what Premier Ford calls Stage 3. What should we be doing now?
I think what we should be doing now is not forgetting that coronavirus is still with us. And even though we have more mobility and more capability to live our next to normal lives, it's still not normal. We need to remember that physical distance between us and other people is really important, that we need to stay home absolutely for sick, that it's really, really important that we wash our hands often, that we practice our good hygiene that we've learned over the last several months or years for some folks, and that this doesn't mean, a free-for-all. This is really about, getting our economy back up and running, but also doing so as safely as possible. If we have an outbreak, it is very difficult to contain, and we all want to avoid that.
It's been very positive to see the government making some pretty major expenses and safety processes, especially to help businesses. The Prime Minister just announced this week that the government's going to extend the wage subsidy for businesses until December. That's right. What was the reason?
Well, I think it's really important that we sustain small and medium-sized businesses throughout this next stage. We know that even though things are getting back to, I don't know if I want to call it normal, but certainly back to business, that it's still precarious for a lot of small and medium-sized businesses. They've assumed a lot of extra expenses. As you've pointed out, they've got some instability in terms of what happens next. If there is an outbreak in their community, they may see a reversal of some of the opening up, and we certainly are trying to avoid that, but that is a reality. There's a lot of risk involved. And we know that risk is difficult. We know that these extra expenses for someone who's really on a very tight budget is very, very difficult. So we want to make sure these businesses can sustain themselves throughout the next stage and do so in a way that gives them the confidence to keep their businesses up and running.
It's positive to see, and I got a press release just before we went to air with a little bit of help from FedNor. Casper Transportation's resuming operations on Monday. So there's been a lot of help there.
Very good. Well, you know what? It's going to take all of us to make sure that we don't let this thing get out of control like we've seen in other countries and other places. And what that means is we all have to continue to remember that any of us could be at risk. And this is still here in the Canadian society. It's still here in the world. And we are very lucky in this country that we are at the low levels of disease activity that we see now. But we have to continue to be vigilant.
That sort of brings us to the border. We've had a couple of instances, one in North Bay and one in Fort Frances, where Americans crossing the border, seem to be coming into Canada and going, well, here we go. There's a lot of pressure to keep the border closed. You seem to be on that issue pretty hard yourself.
Well, listen, I think it's really, really important that we continue to get our situation here in Canada as under control as possible with as few cases as possible. And while we're doing that, I think to manage importation of cases is also pretty tricky. So it gives us a bit more time. As you know, I've been working on strengthening the health professionals at the border so we can really have a good process when borders inevitably will reopen. Listen, we can't keep our borders closed to the world forever, but we just want to be sure that we have the right processes in place and that we have all of the provinces and territories fully geared up to manage any importation of cases quickly and efficiently, so we don't see, widespread outbreaks like we've seen in other countries.
There's some scary stories going on out there right now.
There are.
Here in Thunder Bay Superior North, you've been busy. You've been doing sort of politics differently. Some Zoom calls. It's not like you can really go door knocking or talk to your constituents face to face like we normally do. What would you like to share about that?
Well, it's really difficult this year. And, I was actually just spoke to some of the leaders in my riding about the potential of going to the smaller communities, for example, and visiting. But they all felt that, the constituents and the people living in the regions will understand if I don't get out there this summer, that it's probably safer to try and do things like town halls and Zoom calls for the next while and really reduce risk, as much as possible. I still do have to travel to Ottawa. For example, I'll be there next week for sitting of the House of Commons, and that means that I do get exposed a little bit more frequently, perhaps, than some other people, especially those that are deep in the riding and may not leave the community very often. So I think the balance is probably best if I don't travel too much this year within the riding. Having said that, obviously we're always looking for ways to connect, and one of the ways is the town hall I'm holding tonight.
And we'll put the information in the story with the video, Minister.
That's right.
The story seems to be that if we keep, the thing we've talked about almost every week is that if we keep vigilant, we keep practicing social distancing, what message would you like to share to close out to our readers and viewers today?
It's really, again, important that, first of all, that we continue to stay strong as a country and we continue to practice the measures that we've learned to keep ourselves safe, but also that we support our local economies. And so, it's really fun if you can get out there and have a drink on a patio or, pick up something that you need from a local supplier. These kinds of things can really help ensure that our small, medium-sized businesses can succeed through this time. And there's an opportunity for us to just really show us where our heart is, which is, oftentimes in our own communities. So to the riding and the region, I just want to say I'm with you. I continue to be with you, and together we will get through this. I know that it doesn't feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but I am confident that as a country we're going to get through this and come out on the other side stronger than ever.
Minister, thank you for taking the time today.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye, James.
Bye-bye. Stay informed and stay up to date. Hit subscribe, hit like, share this with a friend. Make sure you hit the little bell so you get notified the next time that we have a video up. Thanks for tuning in to NetNewsLedger.